Joining us now is candidate for mayor of Norfolk, Andy Protogyrou. There are three candidates running for mayor to replace the retiring Bob Frame. Andy, who is with us now, Sheriff of Norfolk Bob McCabe, and State Senator Kenny Alexander. This election will be decided on May 3rd, Tuesday, May 3rd. It is not a majority. There is no runoff. Whoever gets the highest number on May 3rd will be the next mayor of Norfolk. So with everything going on, it's a very high-profile race. Councilman, good to have you with us, sir.
It's good to hear from you, John. Good to be here. I'm in your seat here down here in Portsmouth.
You're in the hot seat? That's probably a good thing. That's a good things will happen to you when you're in that seat, Councilman, no question. Okay, I want to get to this race. It's a three-man race. I want to get right to this. One of the candidates, Bob McCabe, has basically written you off. He said, look, Andy doesn't have a shot. This is a two-man race. He's just taking votes from me. It's between me and Alexander. That's it. That's your choice. How do you respond to that?
Well, I think that Bob can say whatever he wants. I'm the one who has run a professional campaign. We've had professional pollsters. We know what it takes to win this race, and we're in the middle of doing that right now. So, I mean, that's politics. I understand it, and Bob can say what he wishes to try to get votes his way, but that's not how it works in politics. You run polls, you find out what works, you get your message out, and that's what we're doing. We're on television, we're on direct mail. So it doesn't matter to me what he says.
All right, well, Andy, as long as we're talking about advertisers and mailers specifically, one of your mailers I saw the other day said that Sheriff Bob McCabe awarded contracts to donors at the sheriff's office. Can you explain that issue, and what evidence do you actually have of that?
Sure. We have what we have done is we had opposition research done and went through and found, basically what had happened in the past with Bob, and made sure that we had the opportunity to have those articles from the Virginian Pilot pulled, and we have those in front of us. In fact, right now I have the one that discusses circumventing bidding rules. So it's a record. When you have a record that says that you've run a great jail for 22 years, I've done poor votes and done great votes and on council. We all run by our record, and this is the record.
So when you say that there was something that the sheriff's office put out about circumventing bidding rules, can you elaborate on that?
Oh, sure. I'm looking right at it. McCabe is circumventing city purchasing practices by breaking purchases into amounts below $1,000 threshold requiring competitive bids. By avoiding bidding, the sheriff is able to direct department purchases to his campaign donors. If the sheriff declines to stop subdividing purchases from campaign donors, the city or state should take action to make him stop. This is a pilot editorial that came out back when he was running. It looks like it was in of '02. So when you have an opportunity to do the research and look these things up, it's stuff that you can bring before the public, and they can decide whether it affects their wish to vote for him or not.
Now, if I may ask you, Andy Protogyrou, it seems in looking at your campaign material, you've attacked Sheriff McCabe on several different issues, but you've not attacked Senator Kenny Alexander on anything. Do you have any concerns with how Kenny Alexander would handle the job as mayor?
Well, we still have a long way to go to Election Day, so strap on your belt buckle and let's see where we end up.
All right, fair enough. We still got 3 weeks, so Andy, no question, anything can happen. Councilman, you mentioned earlier, you said, look, I've taken good votes and bad votes. Can you share with our audience maybe two of what you would consider your bad votes that you've taken that you really regret, and if you could do it over again, you would take them back? What are they?
Well, I would tell you, and the most recent that I can remember is the vote that came up involving the AQ zone and in Ocean View, where we had a lady who was putting in a dance hall where a restaurant had been, and then prior to that a bike shop. And I think the way it laid out from the city's perspective, the way it laid out from the Navy, it was probably a vote that if we all look back upon it with the proper education from all involved, we probably would have voted differently. So I have to, that's a record I have to eat. But then I can go back and look at positive votes that I've done, including votes where I didn't vote for budgets that I thought were improper. I thought that we went through the wrong procedures and did not support city budgets because of that, or I voted against the Tyvest deal that was coming up, and ultimately most of those people ended up being prosecuted in federal court. So I have to, balance those out. But those are votes that are positive, and the most recent negative vote that I probably should have would have done differently if we had probably been better educated.
Okay, that's an honest answer, and Andy, we appreciate that. Now, you talked about Bob McCade's record as a sheriff. Obviously, you got to go into this. You've got one also. You voted for the big public money expenditure for the new downtown hotel and conference center. I believe Councilman Smagil was the only one to vote no. Do you still think that was the right decision, looking at everything that's happened now?
Sure, I do. I think that when you look at the conference center, it really was not. And keep in mind, usually on these types of votes, John, the lawyer judge that I've been in the past as a substitute judge in me requires that I give explanations. So even on that vote, I gave an explanation, and that's only because we had Waterside coming online. With Waterside coming online and the conference center coming right behind it, those were deals that I had even said at the time were hand in hand. So when I look at the conference center and look at the jobs that are being produced, knowing that Waterside needs to have people downtown that don't necessarily have to be Norfolk residents, then it was my belief that it was the proper vote to make at that point. And I stand by it.
Oh, you still stand by it
Yes.
now? If there's a mayor, Andy Protogyrou, Norfolk councilman has gotten a statewide and regional reputation as a haven for crony capitalism. In order to get a deal, you have to be on the in. People that come from the outside and bid on certain developments, they get shunned. I mean, we could go over example after example after example. They're all detailed out there. And it really looks to a lot of people like, in order to do business in Norfolk, in the development area, you got to be part of the inside baseball development cabal. How would a Mayor Protogyrou change that at a time when, people are just getting sick and tired of people on the inside getting favorable status?
Well, it's a great question, because I have not gotten the support of that development crew in this campaign. The lawyers that are downtown, the majority of the development companies downtown are not supporters of mine in that sense of the word. Part of it is that when I was on council, I had a policy that as a council member of Ward 1, that if you were going to make a development or bring some kind of development, that you had to follow the procedures before you tried to curry favor with me as a council member. I would not accept that. And therefore, they had to go through the planning commission and bring it to council, and then I would handle each matter on a case-by-case basis as judiciously as possible while on the dais and make my decision. So I think that bothered people and thought that I would not be pro-business in the city. But you can be pro-business if you follow it in an upfront, ethical manner, in the sense that you do not have meetings alone, that you include the city and its staff in any meetings. As a mayor now, the mayor has to be a champion of business. Include other council members involved, so that way there is no appearance that any one individual is carrying the bucket of development for any particular person. But it has to be open, honest. It has to be in a manner that involves the city's administration and involves other council members. And that teamwork is why I've got the support of 3 other council members.
That level of teamwork that you're talking about with the other council members, I appreciate that. But you've not really said specifically how you would open the process up, how you would give it more transparency other than including staff in meetings. I mean, if there's a development opportunity that comes up, nobody from the outside ever seems to be able to find a way to get the bid, even if the bids are worse. And I think this is an issue that, people are concerned about, Councilman, especially right now in an environment where people are looking at all this stuff, all the inside baseball that goes on. You've got the same issue now in Virginia Beach, obviously. So beyond having a staff meeting, specifically, how are you going to change that? What is the message that you would give to outside developers or outside vendors that if you're mayor, the city of Norfolk is going to be open to business for anybody that is going to give the city and their taxpayers the best deal?
Well, I think we just talked past each other. I think that if somebody is seeking to do business in Norfolk, I think the idea of having more than one council member and staff involved in any meeting is key. There is no backdoor or backroom deal when you have multiple people involved in those meetings, not staff meetings where we sit and talk in private. I'm talking about you're bringing the deal to us. It's going to be more than just one sitting there listening to that person bringing the deal. As far as I'm concerned, I come from my father was an immigrant. My mother was born and raised in Norfolk of immigrant parents. Everybody came from Greece in our family. We didn't have any inside track or inside deal. As far as I'm concerned, the city's open for business, and we're open in the sense that whoever wishes to come and do business in the city of Norfolk is more than welcome. I don't care if they've done business in the past. I don't care if they're listening from Richmond. But no, by all means, there is no back door or back channel into any mayor's office as far as I'm concerned, should I be there.
Andy, I want to get to education. We touched on this a little bit the first time you were on, but we got cut short on time. The Norfolk public school system is an unmitigated catastrophe. You can't spin, or anybody else can't spin their way out of it. 62% of schools not accredited, failing. Almost 2/3 of every child in the Norfolk school system is in poverty with a subsidized meal program. Bob McCabe, the sheriff, has said the real problem is we have to raise teachers' pay. There's a $7,000 starting gap between starting as a teacher in Norfolk and starting in Chesapeake or Virginia Beach. Kenny Alexander, the senator, has said that the government needs to get more involved in going into specific homes and doing interventions to be sure that the family has what they need in order to create a better educational environment. These are answers. They might not solve it, but I have to admit they are answers to the problem. What is the Protogyrou plan?
Well, I can tell you that, first of all, dealing with when we have 2/3, or really it's about 61% of our children are on the free lunch program. Keep in mind that for the first time in the United States this week, 51% of our children nationally are on that program. And that is something that I read this past week, and I believe is in the Times. So as a national issue, it is very broad, not just the city of Norfolk. Also keep in mind that 99% of our teachers are highly qualified, and that you have a school such as Granby High School that is in the top 5, according to the Post, in academic rigor. So when you look at the issues, having chaired or co-chaired the Poverty Commission in Norfolk, there are areas to look at. Of course, teacher pay is key, and that really is the school board has to ask us for that, tell us where they want to be, and they have this past year. I know that there's an increase in this year's budget, and we have to rely upon them for that. We have an elected school board for the first time. I think that will take us a long way into the future. I believe that we have, if we look at pre-K, right now, children even before they have an opportunity for pre-K, you have mothers that are screened at Centera Norfolk General Hospital for services. That is one way we look at it. Second, we have pre-K that will save a generation, and I firmly believe in that. We've asked the state for more money, and I think in this year's budget, it's $10 million short of what the governor was requesting is what we're getting overall for Norfolk. And I think that money may not be all that's thrown at it to make things happen, but the city's already understood its challenges and have pushed forward. You're talking about a career technical school for high schoolers. We need longer days. The General Assembly didn't go with that, so the city has to look at boys and girls clubs and community centers to keep children occupied, especially in the afternoons when they come home and their parents are still working. So we have to look at that and make sure that that occurs. But I think that moving ourselves out of poverty is key, and making sure that we have jobs. We've added 5,300 new jobs, we believe. I I want to tell you by 2018 they should be in the city. And as long as we can have jobs and people working, and then in turn we can make the public schools better overall. And I think we're going in that path.
So you feel confident that if you become mayor with some of the initiatives you've just outlined, that you're going to take down the percentage of public schools in Norfolk that are non-accredited? It's about 62% now. At the end of Andy Protogyrou's first term as mayor, what would you see that percentage being?
Well, I can't
make a prediction.
I think that that'd be foolish to make a prediction like that. But I would tell you this: when you have an elected school board and a council that are willing to work together and talk and make things happen, I want to be able to wake up and look myself in the mirror 4 years from now and say that I was successful. It's very difficult to say how much of a percentage anything would be. But I think that you have people who are willing to talk and work together, and I think you have that in a council that I would be the leader of, and with the relationships that I would have with the school board, especially as I see that occurring now while on council, I see success.
You
don't miss success.
You don't want to define a number like what that would be.
I think anybody that defines a number would be foolish. You can't.
Is it fair to say that it would be something under the number it is now?
I think it'd be fair to say that we would do everything we could to get it under that number it is now, yes.
We are out of time. I want to thank Councilman Andy Protogyrou for being with us today. He is a candidate for mayor of Norfolk. Again, 3 people in the race: Andy Protogyrou, State Senator Kenny Alexander, and Sheriff Bob McCabe. The election will be settled on May 3rd. Andy, thanks for being in studio today. Thanks for sharing your perspective with me and our listeners.